Hello, family, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with a Coronavirus Victim. As you all know, COVID-19 has just wreaked havoc across the world and even here in America, all the way to Georgia. And it's always a blessing to be able to talk to someone who's overcome. And today we have two young ladies who have beautiful spirits who have contracted the COVID-19 and have been able to overcome that disease. And they're here to tell their story today. I want to introduce to you guys two beautiful women, LaToya Brooks and her sister, Tiffany Brooks. Hello, Miss LaToya and Miss Tiffany.
Hi, how are you?
Look at you guys, looking like the Doublemint twins coming on there. Hi. We are so glad to see you guys and so glad that you're with us to tell your testimony today.
We're so glad to be here to tell you.
Yes, ma'am. So you're Tiffany in the yellow, correct? And LaToya or Toya, you're in the green, just so we can clarify who's who.
Yeah.
And once again, thank you all so much for being on here. We just want to have a conversation with you so that you can let us know kind of how all of this transpired, because sometimes we see the news and we see, it just looks like it's something that happens to other people and not to ourselves. But just seeing your face and knowing that you're in our same community, that brings so much relevance to COVID-19. So I want to get started back in February with listening to your story. You talk about, I believe, Tiffany, you talked about how you all had a conversation about COVID-19, and you're a nurse, an essential worker, correct? And you had a conversation with your mother and your sister about coronavirus and even packed a bag. Can you just go back and tell us what that conversation entailed and what was said?
Yeah, at that time, the hospital, we were having like informationals about COVID-19, getting us prepared. And at that time, I felt like I needed to get my family prepared. Me being a nurse, I knew that I would be working with patients that possibly had COVID-19. And I knew that I would have to go outside. I couldn't be quarantined like other people. And my mother, with her having so many different comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, and she was on dialysis. So we knew she had to leave the home as well. So we talked about her and me leaving, and that we could, come in contact or with someone or catch the COVID-19. So, we sat down and talked about what that would look like for our family, possibly being hospitalized. So my sister knew where everyone's bag was. If she had to bring it to the hospital. We talked about that we would be in the hospital by ourselves. And we had to make sure my mom understood that, we couldn't be there with you and you would have to do this alone. So I just want to make sure we all understood what would happen.
Oh my goodness. And what were your thoughts, Toya, as she talked about all of this? Is this a normal thing that Tiffany does? She's just ahead of the game on everything. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I jokingly said to both of them before we even started packing bags, I was like, you guys are going to give it to me. And because they would be the two that would have to go out the home, that would not be able to be quarantined. So the exposure of just going out the house every day or every other day, I knew that was an exposure for me also. So we kind of talked through, okay, you guys will either go to the hospital or to a hotel if something happens, just to at least keep one of us safe during this process. And as we all know, it doesn't become reality until you hear those words, COVID-19, or you're positive. So, and that's for everybody, our entire family. It didn't become real for the extended family until someone said COVID-19. So just talking through packing the bags, our game plan, we just wanted to be prepared. We didn't know if it was going to happen, if it didn't, but you have a different mindset when you're already thinking something could happen.
Wow. That's amazing. I had never heard of anybody saying, you know what, this could be a reality, but that makes a lot of sense though. That makes a lot of sense, especially with your background. So moving forward to March, I want to say, I don't have the exact date. I believe it was March 30th. your mom started feeling some symptoms of allergies, sinus.
Yeah.
We hear about that. It kind of started with that. So
Yeah.
can you tell me about how that got started and what she said she felt from the beginning and what process ensued after that?
Well, she just simply was having like a sore throat and a little headache. So me and my sister, we said, this is probably allergies because she had started walking our neighborhood every day and the pollen count was high. She has allergies. So we didn't at that time think COVID-19 because even at her dialysis center, they were wearing masks. At that point, I was wearing masks at work. I was taking my clothes off in the garage, Lysoling. We were Lysoling her bags. So we really didn't think, it could be possibly COVID-19. Um, and when she woke up Tuesday of that week to go to dialysis, she was really sick. She said, my throat is really sore. I'm having a really bad headache. I gave her medication and I said, you have to go to dialysis. You can't miss. And she said she didn't think she would be able to go. So she actually missed that day of dialysis. And we called the clinic and they said, take your mom to get tested to make sure she doesn't have COVID-19. So that's when it started to become a reality that she could possibly have it. We actually went to an urgent care here in Atlanta, and the physician saw my mom and said it's allergies. They didn't even offer her
Wow.
COVID-19 test. So the dialysis clinic was very proactive. They said, well, she can't come back here. She has to go to a special clinic for patients that are ruled out COVID-19 or that have it. So at first we were kind of like, well, we don't want her to go there because if she doesn't have it, we're exposing her. But she actually went to that clinic on Wednesday. And when she came home, she took a nap and woke up confused. And at that point, we knew something was going on.
And what's odd about it, I thought maybe she was having a stroke. So she has had a stroke in the past, hence why her kidneys with dialysis. And I thought she was truly having a stroke. So I started a stroke assessment on her. So I'm going through, and what baffled me, I asked her, who's the president? And she couldn't answer. And she was like, I think I know. And I'm like, we've watched him on the news every day. You should know who the president was. And that wasn't at the time a symptom. Confusion, stroke-like symptoms was not part of it.
Or you did hear about it.
Yes, you didn't know.
Right.
And we were scared to let her go to the hospital. So I was like, I'm FaceTiming Tiffany and the other nurses before we drive to Northside Hospital and see if you have some type of stroke or some other issue. And we went through, yet again, another stroke assessment on FaceTime. And still thinking that it was stroke activity until I got to the hospital.
Wow. My goodness.
So nothing with COVID.
Yeah.
Truly thinking it was another illness.
Yeah, because she had a low temperature. So, at that time I was thinking like she would have a really high temperature. And it was 99.5, but when she got to the hospital and we lived 15 minutes away, it was 102.5. So when I knew that, that's when I knew this is COVID.
Wow. So she had to wait until she got to the hospital to be even tested. Is that what you all are saying?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So once there, okay. So once you guys got there, were you all able to, and I'm just trying to talk through this for people who don't understand. Once you're there, did you just have to leave her there? Or were you all able to go to the back? Or how did that work?
So they allowed me, I literally dropped her off at a front kind of haphazard tent area. And they were like, you stay here in your car. You can park right here and stay in your car. We will allow you to go in 5 or 10 minutes just to give her health information and to provide her health insurance. Because we're thinking still, I'm telling them that it is a stroke symptoms and not really thinking COVID-19 still. So they told me that I would have to wear a mask and gear to come in for the 5 or 10 minutes, but that was going to be the most that I could stay in. And so we went to the back. gave them the information, and I said, I have a sister that works here at this hospital. She's upstairs right now. And they're like, well, we're going to have you remove yourself from the room, and we'll let her come down for 5 or 10 minutes to finish the information. And so they started the assessment while I was in the room. And quickly, once the doctor came in and the nurse, and it was within minutes, came in and said, this could be COVID-19. And I'm looking like, no, I'm thinking stroke. But I went through all of the activity that had happened the last 2 days. One, we thought she was having allergies, thinking she had sinus problems, talking through the state of confusion. So just kind of chronicling her days leading up to this. And immediately they thought COVID-19 and ran a test.
Yeah, and you didn't know her temperature yet. So once I knew the temperature and I came downstairs and I saw her, then my mind immediately went to she does have COVID-19, and they did X-rays and they saw that she had pneumonia or viral pneumonia, which you have with COVID-19. So then the confusion and the fever, all those things started to make sense to me.
Wow. And this is my first time hearing about the stroke-like symptoms. Wow. Did not know that. That's a good note to let us all know about that.
So one good place to go. So once I got home, literally had to leave the hospital, came home, I went to the CDC website, and there was the symptom, confusion has been added. So this is a new virus and it's evolving, and they're learning new things every day. So it's really good to go to the CDC website and look at things to see if there's something that you just didn't know.
That's right, because it seems to be updating on a regular basis as things
symptoms added.
They don't know, right? They don't know either. Yeah. So wow. So fast forward, we're going to go past with your mom. With her, did she have to be admitted to the hospital, or did they send her back home?
She was there for 4 days. They actually let me go back to talk to her, and I, even with her being confused, I said, do you remember our plan? And she said, yes, I know I'm going to be by myself. I'm going to be a big girl. And I said, okay, you got it. So she was admitted, and at that time they did the test, but they didn't have the results, but the pneumonia looked like it was COVID-19, how it just presented in her lungs. So she was there for 4 days. She was discharged home on that 4th day with oxygen. The doctor at the time kind of talked to me and Toya about the precautions that we needed to do at home. He told us, when she comes home in her room, to let the windows up. Or he actually told us in our home, do we share an air vent, or do we have our air on 1 or 2 different levels. So we actually had to cover up the air vents from her room to our rooms, because we're on a 3-level home and we're each stay on 3 levels. So we thought that, we will be okay separated. But then the doctor kind of heard me cough on the phone, and he said, have you been tested? Did you just start coughing? So I was like, yeah, this cough is new. And he said, you definitely need to get tested. So he's the one that kind of put it in my mind, we've been exposed, for days. And, at that time, you don't think about yourself. So I got tested that Friday, and then she came home Saturday.
Okay. So how long go ahead, Toya. I'm sorry, Toya.
No problem. He even advised that I self-isolate in one room of the home, and then only go to the kitchen to prepare food for them, and then immediately come back into the same room, close that room off as much as possible. So at that point, I knew that it was probably somewhat in the air. Just from his instructions. And so we're thankful that he at least even gave some of that knowledge to open up the windows, to close the vents, and kind of separate, because we're not always allowed or able to separate sometimes when someone is in the home with COVID-19. But we tried to isolate as much as possible, so everybody kind of stayed in their own room during the entire time.
Yeah, and we kind of decided that since I was coughing, and actually after that day we talked, and I started coughing, I started to have back pain, which I never have, a little bit of shortness of breath. So we decided, and the doctor also helped us decide that I would be her caretaker that time because
Mm.
I'm presenting symptoms and Toya isn't having any. So, I came to pick her up from the hospital and I was initially the one taking care of her until my results came back.
Wow. And how long did it take for your results to come back, Tiffany?
I went that Friday, and I think I didn't get my results to that Wednesday, that they were
Mm.
positive, which I already knew from the symptoms. And, at first I was initially nervous, because I have asthma, I'm insulin dependent. And so I kind of knew, how this disease would act to the lungs. So I kind of knew at that moment, I have it and I'm going to have to be strong to help take care of my mom, which symptoms are worse than mine. I think she had every symptom that was on the sheet you can have. So
Oh my
it was an
gosh.
eye-opening moment.
Mm, my goodness. So moving forward from Tiffany, from you being diagnosed. So Toya,
Mhm.
where did you come into play in all of this? Did you have to be tested? What happened after that?
So after about a week of them both being here, I was like, I really need to get tested. And so I thought this when Tiffany was tested, but at that time I felt it was critical that people, this new virus, that people that had symptoms needed to be tested. And then as the weeks progressed, I was like, I probably should get tested at this point. Since I don't have any health issues, maybe it's just not presenting itself. So I tried and
Mhm.
tried for a whole week to schedule a test. And at that time, they wouldn't let anyone asymptomatic actually be tested. So I decided there was a new center being opened up for testing. And I said, well, maybe I'll tell one or two little fibs, Jesus forgive me, to try to take a test. And so I went to one of the rapid testing centers on
Mhm.
their website and completed the form and did a little white lie and got
Mhm.
test scheduled for later that week.
Mhm.
And so my rapid test will come back within 20 minutes. So
Mhm.
went to the testing center, was expecting a negative for sure. And when the young lady called me on the phone, since it was a rapid center, they just call you on your cell phone. And she said, you're positive. And I was like, I have no symptoms. Like, this is
Wow.
crazy.
Mhm.
Wow. So let me ask you this, and this is for a lot of people because the asymptomatic thing, that's what really kind of, I don't want to say scares me, but it makes me more alarmed. And I think that people don't think about that because looking at you, you said that you haven't had any symptoms of anything, but you've had coronavirus. So
Yes.
Mhm.
there are many people who may be in the same situation. Have you had any kind of headache, any kind of, I just want you to kind of talk about that because we kind of don't highlight
Mhm.
the asymptomatic portion of it.
So funny thing about it, the day before I had my test, a friend had said, hey, let's do a fitness class online. And I was like, okay, so
Hmm.
this is one of those extreme fitness classes. 1 hour, I'm fully drenched in sweat. And I was like, there's no way I have COVID-19 and I'm able to do this. And so I joked to everybody, well, I did this class. There's no way my lungs would have collapsed. And the next day, I'm testing positive. I was still running to the grocery store, walking outside, climbing steps every day. There was nothing that would have indicated you have COVID-19. Still cooking meals. I mean,
Wow.
living a normal life, yes,
Mhm.
inside my home, but still a very active, no symptoms.
Look, I was the one that knew she had
Wow.
it. I said, "There's no way, no way she could be in this home with us, cooking meals, going up and down the stairs. There's no way that she could not
Hmm.
have." That's how I felt, and I think the
And
Wow.
epidemiologist actually called us,
mhm,
and she was like, "Well, did your sister get tested?" And we were like, she tried. She called her physician and they said no. And I told her,
mhm,
I said, we have to lie to get her tested. And she said, that's fine. She said, because we need to start testing people that don't
Yeah.
present themselves
Mhm.
or are with people that have COVID-19 to see if they have it. So, she, kind of blessed us and saying you did the right thing, because even though you're all quarantined, you don't know how your sister could affect it someone else.
That is so true. And I was going to say too, so do you all know, my question was, do you all know where you contracted it from or where your mom got it from? Do you believe it was just airborne from a doctor's office? Do you have any clue?
We kind of went round and round with it because Toya was asymptomatic. So what if she had it before any of us? She was going to the grocery store. Or what if I was at work in the hospital and I came across someone and I just didn't present symptoms? Or what if my mom got it from someone at dialysis? So there were so many factors, so many
Mhm.
ways we could twist the story to try to figure it out. And I know my mom's physician said, why would you even worry? She said, you're not going to be able to figure it out unless you directly came in
Right.
contact with someone. You'll never know. And she said that's just one of the things that you have to go outside. When you're quarantined in your home, you're safe. When you go outside, you can possibly get it. So, we kind of stopped thinking about it because at first we thought, oh, definitely she got it at dialysis. But when my
Mhm.
sister was positive, that kind of changed the story.
Wow.
And with me
Wow.
even being cautious around the home. So I didn't go in either one of their rooms. I would leave food outside their door. I did not go into the rooms at all. So it's not like I had direct contact with them. When they were leaving to go to dialysis, I was locked in my room. There wasn't any kind of cross contamination of we're all going to eat in the kitchen, none of that.
No.
So we all truly self isolated and still all three
And we even had
contracted.
a route to get out the house. Me and my mom went to the front door. I came straight down the steps, went to the front door. I didn't touch anything. Toya would go another way.
I would go through the garage door.
So we thought that, we thought we had it together in some sense
Right.
to protect
Right.
her. The doctor
Mhm.
told me that was our job, to protect her, to make sure she wouldn't get the virus.
Right. And it sounds like you all took all the precautionary measures. You weren't loose and just being out,
No,
you know.
no.
But I appreciate your honesty in all of that because some of us need to know that. And then to see you that you've overcome it and that you're doing well. So I was seeing on you all, how many times did you have to test negative for COVID-19? Can you go through that?
Well, yeah, I actually tested 6 times.
Wow.
My original test was on April the 3rd or the 4th, that Friday. Then I actually retested on the 22nd because at the beginning of the pandemic, they were all saying 14 days. So I thought the 22nd was enough days and I would be fine. Then I tested positive. Then I talked to my doctor and she said, well, let's wait another week. And actually, my job, said that they would test me the next week, positive again. So after that third positive test, that was the next week, that was going on 5 weeks at that time. So that's when I definitely knew this was not a 14-day virus. You can't just say that it'll be gone in 14 days. So then I tested again after that. And actually, it was this week that I got 2 negative tests. So just this week,
Wow.
we both found out that we're negative.
And this is 5 weeks, you said, since the start?
That was April the 3rd was my
Oh,
first, I think, my first positive. And I just became negative May 19th.
oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. That's way past 14 days.
That's way past the
Yes.
Okay.
14 days. Way past.
Okay.
And even
Mm.
though I was feeling good some days, I had a lot of days where I had kind of more sinus symptoms. The first
Mm.
2 weeks, I just had shortness of breath a little bit, and back pain. I had really bad back pain that I know I typically don't have. And maybe one day I had aching in my knees and a low grade fever. So I was one of the lucky ones that had really mild symptoms. And that lasted for 2 weeks, but I was still testing positive. And I actually went to an infectious disease doctor. I did a virtual visit because I didn't understand how could I be positive so long. What
Right.
could I do? Should I take treatment? I was self-treating myself before. And, he informs me, the PCR tests are very sensitive. So, it just might be testing, picking up, actually the virus clearing itself out of my system. So he said we'll just have to kind of wait to that negative test result.
Wow. Wow. And the same thing with you, Toya. Was it the same for you, or how many times do you have to test for to get a
So
negative?
I only tested twice. The first time for the
Okay.
positive, second time for the negative. So my thought process was, well, I'll wait till one of them becomes negative. And my mom tested before Tiffany, and she was being tested probably
Every
once a
week.
week at dialysis. And the test would come back either positive or inconclusive. And so I said, well, I'm just going to wait. And finally, after her having 6 weeks of being positive, we were talking to one of the doctors and said, hey, would it be a good idea just for me to go get tested also to see if maybe we're passing COVID 19 at this point, or am I negative? And so I went to have my test. However, that was the week that Georgia started ramping up their testing a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, and they were behind. So I didn't go to the rapid center this time. It took about 6 days
Mm-hmm.
for me to get my test results back. So I was positive, thinking I was positive that whole time, but received,
Mhm.
hey, negative at this point, about a week later.
And our mom is still inconclusive at this time,
Wow. Wow.
even though she doesn't have symptoms.
And I
Wow.
think her symptoms probably stopped
Hmm.
about 6, almost 7 weeks. So hers did not really clear until that
Mm.
7th week. She was still
Yeah,
having problems breathing, still tired,
yeah,
still unable to really walk and do basic things like brushing her teeth and combing her hair.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
went on for a very long time, well beyond
Wow.
14 days.
Hmm.
Wow. What advice would you give to someone who's kind of going through what you all have been through? Because we may have some coronavirus survivors, as I like to call you guys, watching now, or may have a family member. I know sometimes when we hear it, we kind of panic and it's like, oh my goodness. But to see your beautiful faces, we see that you can overcome this and that you can go through it. So, what word of encouragement or advice would you give to someone who may have contracted it or has someone close to them who has it?
To just stay strong. I know Pastor Cross, she called me to check up on me and to pray with me. And she said something that kind of just reactivated in me my faith that I was going to be okay. She said, how do you know God is a healer if you never get sick? So when she said that to me, I really thought about it. I said, how would I know for myself that I could overcome this? And during that time with me being sick, I prayed. I was very specific and I said, God, make sure, help me where my symptoms are mild so I can be able to take care of my mom, so I can be strong during this time. And God really honored that prayer for me and kept me strong. And I would just tell people, to be informed. They say that we can go outside and we can do all of these things, but you have to think in your own mind. It's affecting African Americans, other people of color, the Hispanic community. So I would say be cautious. Don't go really outside or do things until you have to. We don't really have a handle on this. We've had so much misinformation or thinking that 14 days you will be better, or the symptoms, how they kept changing. I would just say use your own mind and know that God is a healer. And with Him, you can get through anything.
And I'll also just say, talk to people. So I think that is one thing that no one really wants to talk about COVID-19. And when I started to tell our family, oh, we think my mom has, it was at that time the coronavirus, other people start telling us, oh, I had it. And I'm like, what? Didn't have a clue that you've had this. And so just started talking to them and hearing their stories and kind of what they did really helped and gave you an outlet to call someone to talk about the frustration of being in your house, of having COVID-19, how to clean everything properly. So it was really good to also have a support system if you're in the midst of someone actually having COVID-19. And then also using technology that we have. So yes, my mother is older. She's 71. However, she knows how to use FaceTime. She knows how to use Marco Polo. So she stayed connected in the hospital and didn't feel as isolated. And true, she was weak and everything, but she would still, if she needed something, she would call and FaceTime you. So they at least kept that connection because we've never had a time where you couldn't go into a hospital to visit someone that's sick or to pray for someone in a hospital room that's sick. So it really allowed her that accessibility to other people while she was in the hospital. So give them that cell phone. I was like, I forgot her glasses, but I had her cell phone.
That's
so
right.
She could somewhat see me, but not really, but good enough. That gave her the sense that I'm not alone. So we all need to stay connected and utilize some of these that we have and just stay prayerful through all of this. What I thought about just from a quarantine standpoint, I mean, if you look throughout the Bible, there are several people that waited 40 days, 30 days, 15 days. So we're waiting 60 days, 70 days in our own home. Let's just be cautious and make sure that someone that's asymptomatic like me, not going out spreading this virus, not wearing your mask, because you don't know if you have it in your system and you could hurt someone who has some type of health illness. So when I started going back to the store, I still made sure I had my mask on, my gloves on, because I didn't want to spread the virus, even though they told me I was negative. I still didn't want to spread the virus. So just be cautious when you're going out.
Wow. Well, thank you. The two of you just gave us a good sermon. Now, I appreciate y'all for telling us about that and being so honest, as you said, because a lot of people, I believe, have it or have had it, and they just don't want to let us know. But it's okay because you can overcome it just like any other thing. So we are so grateful again. Latoya, thank you so much, Tiffany, the two of you, the Brooks sisters. We appreciate you all, and we're praying for you. Thank you so much for your honesty. And thank you all so much for joining us for Conversations with a Coronavirus Victim. Thank you all so much. We love you guys.
Thank you. Love you.
Love
Bye,
you too.
everybody.
Have a good one.
You too. Have a great week.
Washington is working really well for the folks who are well connected. But for people in the communities that I serve and people sitting around their kitchen table right now, I don't think it's working well. I still believe in the American dream, but there's a disconnect between the American people and what we're getting in Washington. We're seeing how this is working, and so I would challenge the people of Georgia to try something different. I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message.
I want to talk to you about the stakes in this election as plainly as I can. If we're going to get this virus under control, get folks back to work, and make sure affordable health care is available for everybody, we've got to send people to Washington who aren't interested in playing political games or making themselves rich. We've got to elect folks who will get to work for people like you. That's why I'm supporting Reverend Raphael Warnock in the special election for Senate. Reverend Warnock's someone I've known for years. He's a man of great moral integrity, a leader in the truest sense of the word. He's spent his life pushing for justice, fighting to expand healthcare, protecting voting rights and the dignity of work. You don't find a lot of people in Washington like Reverend Warnock, and that's exactly why we got to get him there. Please join me in supporting Raphael Warnock for Senate.
I'm Raphael Warnock, and I know we can do better. That's why I approve this message.
I'm John Ossoff. Truth is, corruption in Washington has infected both parties. They're too busy serving lobbyists to serve us. I'll ban corporate political donations and secret corporate money in politics. And I'll crack down on price gouging by health insurance and drug companies who use that money to buy off Congress. We're all in this together. Together we can end the corruption and make healthcare affordable. Fighting corruption is my job, and that's why I approve this message.
The pandemic has definitely shone a light on the current, present, and historical inequities in the school system.
COVID, when it hit for us, we really realized that there was an equity divide or a resource divide. You had your haves and your have-nots, depending on where you live.
Our public school system in this country really wasn't designed to educate Black and brown students well. We got to work with our local Congress people, our local electeds. We got to organize. We got to make some noise so our kids can get the resources that they deserve.
It's about having that choice to decide what is best for your child.